What is happening, guys? Jonathan here, aka CrazyShadow 303, here with another new project on the CrazyShadow Talks Football YouTube channel. It's the first episode of the Halfords Lane Chat, brand new podcast here on the CrazyShadow Talks Football YouTube channel. I'm joined by, you all know him from the match vlogs, the other half of this channel. My brother Darren, you love his predictions. Sometimes he gets them right, which is more than what I can say for myself. So yeah, my brother Darren, how are you today? How are you today, Darren? Are you there, Darren? He seems to have dropped out a little bit.
Yeah, just losing a bit of connection.
Yeah, so yeah, that's fine. How are you? Oh, still a bit of a connection issue. So yeah, we're trying getting back, but our guest today on this first podcast is Ben Ellis from Switch Radio and BHBN Radio. How are you doing today, Ben?
I'm doing pretty well, Jonathan. Pretty well indeed. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. So we're going to start with, and this is, to be honest, this is not how I anticipated starting the very first episode, but we're going to pay a little bit of a tribute to the late, great Trevor Francis, formerly of Birmingham City and Nottingham Forest, the first ever £1 million player, scorer of the winning goal in the 1979 European Cup, which is now known as the Champions League. And yeah, I mean, I was a little bit too young, as is Darren, to remember that particular European final. But yeah, I mean, he was a great stalwart of Midlands football, and yeah, he was a really great player all round. Former Birmingham players like Jude Bellingham has paid tribute to him, and he also managed Sheffield Wednesday and Birmingham themselves as well. So Ben, anything to add about Trevor Francis?
No more than has been said in the last sort of 36 hours. That it's obviously very, very sad news and very, very sudden news. I spoke with Blues fans. I spoke with journalists who covered Trevor Francis, who watched him week in, week out and wrote about him on my radio show this morning. And yeah, he very much left the mark. I mean, if we could bring this in a way from a West Bromwich Albion point of view, there is a feeling very similar to 5 years ago when Cyril Regis left us. It's that level of affection. And I made a list on social media, and I think you saw this of a list of names of players: at Billy Wright at Wolves, Jeff Astle, and Cyril Regis at West Brom, Hugo Echiog and Dalian Atkinson at Aston Villa, and you have to add that the name of Trevor Francis to that list now of players who played their best football in this area and left a mark here and forged a bond between player and supporter that the way the game is going these days, that bond is getting weaker and weaker as each season goes by. And for Albion fans who saw me write that list and might have been a bit upset, there was a glaring omission from that list. And I'd like to redress the balance right now and add the name of Laurie Cunningham to that list as well, because he was a fabulous footballer as well. So Trevor Francis, obviously in that mould. It's obviously very coincidental talking about the first £1 million footballer leaving us on the day when a deal is struck for £259 million for one player, which is just obscene. But also the news that one of the players he managed, that he signed for Sheffield Wednesday, passes away within the same 24-hour period in Chris Bart-Williams. You know, very, very sad. A lot of love. You know, we have our rivalries, and my team is Aston Villa. I'm happy to be on a West Brom channel here. We have our rivalries, we have our banter, but we're all cut from the same cloth round here as far as how we love our football, how we consume our football. And Blues fans and their outpouring for Trevor Francis, they say it's no different than when Cyril Regis left us, and how West Brom fans, and to a lesser extent Villa fans, because Cyril Regis wasn't at Villa for as long, but Coventry fans certainly, because they won the FA Cup with Cyril Regis. It's that level. It's that level of grief. It's that level of affection, and it will take a little while for the West Midlands football family to come to terms with this loss, for sure.
Yeah, and we were saying, Darren, just before you disconnected, that Trevor Francis has been one of the mainstays of Midlands football. We mentioned obviously Cyril Regis and Laurie Cunningham there as well. But Darren, how are you feeling on this rather sad time for Midlands football, and also the loss of Chris Bart-Williams?
I'm very gutted.
Yeah,
I know he was the manager of Birmingham St Francis, but he still managed the Midlands club. Yeah,
absolutely. And also with Chris Bart-Williams as well, passing away. Defender and midfielder, playing for Sheffield Wednesday, Nottingham Forest and Charlton Athletic when they were in the Premier League as well. So to lose not one but two stalwarts of the game has been it's been a pretty sad 36 hours. And our thoughts here at CrazyShadow Talks Football goes out to the families of both Trevor Francis and Chris Bart-Williams. But now, guys, obviously, that's not how I wanted to do the intro. It's not how I imagined the very first intro of the very first episode. But of course, it was warranted because they were two great, players of the game. Trevor Francis, one of the great managers as well here in the Midlands. Onto more Albion focused stuff, and we have the new season coming up. As of the time that this episode goes out, it will be this Friday that the new season starts. But our first game at the Albion is away to Blackburn Rovers. It is a really tough league to get promoted from, as we both know from West Bromwich Albion and Aston Villa's points of views. We've been there, we've suffered playoff final defeats in the past, and it's going to be a really tough ask for Albion this season, given our current situation, because we have the likes of Leicester, Southampton, Leeds United getting relegated last season. We've had Sheffield Wednesday and Ipswich get promoted from League One. We've also got mainstays like Norwich and Sunderland. And obviously Sunderland got beaten in the playoff semi-final by Luton last year, who eventually went on to get promoted. And also we've got the local derbies against Birmingham and Coventry to look forward to as well. But Darren, where realistically could we finish come May next year? Oh, a little bit of a connection issue again. I'll put that question to you, Ben. From an outsider's point of view, where realistically do you think Albion will finish?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to be very popular amongst the viewers of this channel. I'm worried for you. I'm genuinely concerned. Yes, there's been a so-called restructure. Ron Gourlay gone, the new guy who you mentioned at the top of the show, he's effectively doing the same job, but he's got a different job title now, which I seem to find rather strange. There's the off-field issue with the loan, and it seems to me, from what I've read, that the business of the club, the wheeling and dealing in terms of bringing players in, it seems to rest on a a total of just £7 million, which is nothing in regards to what you would be trying to achieve. We've talked about this before on other programs, well over 12 months ago. So the back end of the season before last, if you count the season that's coming up as this season, Steve Bruce was still the manager, and we went through a list of players that was still under contract. The vast majority of them are still around. I mean, where are the assets? Effectively, is the question I'm asking. If I go through a list here, and I'll just pick out a few names: David Button, the goalkeeper, now at the age of 34; Semi Ajayi, Kipre, Kyle Bartley, Eric Priestley has signed a contract extension. That's potentially a bit of good news. Darnell Furlong, Taylor Gardner-Hickman, Yukshalu, Chalabar, John Swift, Alex Mowat, Jason Malumbi. You've either, and it's going to go one of two ways, you've got the core of a very sound championship squad, or you've got a bunch of players who have been under contract earning Premier League parachute money for too long. The longer that they're there are depreciating in value and are getting more and more difficult to get off the wage bill. And I think it's going to go either one of those two ways.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, we've finished the past two seasons in ninth and, ninth and 10th, there and thereabouts. And from a fan's perspective, Darren can vouch for this. It hasn't been, it's not good enough from our point of view in terms of on the pitch and off the pitch. We'll get into that off the pitch, stuff later on in this program. But yeah, I mean, realistically, I don't see us making playoffs right now. We need to massively strengthen the squad. Carlos Corberán, he needs, as good as he was at the end of last season, after Steve Bruce had got sacked, when we went on that 10-game undefeated streak. And, but even now, Carlos Corberán will need help from the board, and we as fans don't see that coming. So realistically, it could be quite a few years before we actually get in a shout of, even getting into the playoffs at this rate. We could be finishing like 8th, 9th, 10th again, to be honest.
So why has he stuck around then? Because Carlos Corberán was linked with a lot of jobs when quite a few clubs were getting desperate at the back end of the Premier League season. Look, Leeds, he was on the verge of going to, people were saying. So there's been a restructure at the club. Somebody has said something that has convinced Carlos Corberán, who, let's be honest, is the only reason they even thought about getting in the playoffs last season. When he came in, was it second game? The second game he had, the home game, absolutely battered by Sheffield United, bottom of the league in October. Then went on an incredible run, only at home though. I mean, let's put that into context. That it was the home form that got him on that run. There were plenty of really, really poor performances and results on the road, which and this is the thing about West Brom. They're not my team, but West Brom are one of the favourite teams of Sky. They pick them out for Friday night games all the time. I watched plenty of West Bromwich Albion last season. I think of the topsy turvy game at Watford, which ended up losing 3-2. That one springs to mind almost instantly. The killer was the Sunderland one. The back end of the season, having been 1-0 up. Yeah, that was the big one. I sat there and I thought having been 1-0 up and losing those 2 goals late, I thought that's a very damaging result. I didn't think Carlos Corberán would stick around over the summer. I must be honest. So he's obviously been sold on what the plan is. Problem is we don't know what the plan is, other than that there's been a restructure. But unless you have an overhaul of the squad of the names that I've just mentioned, unless you get them out the door and refresh the squad, I don't see how you can rebuild a team that the fans are going to be excited about watching and getting behind. Yeah. And 2, that's going to sustain a realistic challenge. And I'm just going to say playoffs at this point. I'm not going to say promotion. I'm just going to say playoffs. So right now, I could be, back end of July. You replay this to me in May, and I could be completely wrong. But I don't see at the moment. I don't see a team or a club that's prepping itself for a push at trying to get into the Premier League. I just don't see that at the moment.
Absolutely. And Darren, I mean, we've been through it all as fans last season. You know, our season tickets, there was quite a few games where, you know, you walked out of because we were playing so poor, and I respect that. You know, there's quite a few fans who would have said stay till the final whistle, but it's like, you know, some of the performances last season, you know, if I wasn't doing a vlog, I could have probably walked out of. You know, it was that annoying, you know, that we could, because we know what this team is capable of. We know what West Bromwich Albion is capable of. We spent like 8 years in the Premier League, you know, the last decade. And, you know, for us to be back to what's known as a yo-yo club for a couple of seasons, and then now we've obviously spent a couple of seasons in the Championship now, and, you know, we're still no closer to getting back to the Premier League. So where do you think we'll end up come May, Darren? I'll give you a moment. Yeah, you're back. You're back.
What? Yeah, it's okay. I'm losing connection.
Yeah, that's fine. Just like give us a league position come May.
I'll probably say 7th.
7th, so just missing out on playoffs. Yeah, because
I would be amazed if they finish in 7th.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
I mean,
honestly, I would be astounded. To be honest, I mean, you could say 7th would be failure because they'd obviously missed out in the playoffs. I'd bite your hand off for 7th right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd see that as a really good season, but
yeah,
I'm just curious. I want to know. As I say, if I want to know, I'm sure you guys want to know, and the Albion fans. But from a covering the story point of view, I want to know what the realistic plan is. Now, the new managing director thing, the new Ron Gourlay, who remind me of his name, he said in an interview, he said in an interview, which actually made the main BBC Sport app, so it wasn't an insignificant piece of news. He did this interview, and he said they've got it into a position now regarding the owner and the £5 million, where we're just about okay. I don't want to hear we're just about okay. If I'm an Albion fan, quite frankly, I don't want to see that. I don't want to hear that. I want to know what the plan is. I want to know how you're going to forge a team together. I want to know how you're going to win more games away from home. I want to know how many silly leads you're going to avoid blowing. I mean, I was at plenty of West Brom games for BHBN. In fact, I think I was a bit of a jinx. I was at the Blues game, which was 3-2. I was at the Blackburn game, which they conceded in the last second with Brereton Diaz, and Easter Monday, QPR 2-0 up in 10 minutes and blowing it there. So, you know, I want to know what they're going to do in both areas. I want to know what they're going to do off the field to structure the club in a way that can be sustainable and move forward, and then think about long-term pushing for maybe getting into the playoffs and hopefully getting into the Premier League. And I want to know what they're going to do on the field in terms of how they play, how they set up, in terms of if they can cut out some of the really silly errors that they were making. And the fact that they've let the likes of Dara O'Shea go, and with nobody coming in yet, doesn't fill me with a massive amount of confidence. So, Darren, if you say 7th, I would be astounded.
Yeah, I mean, onto transfers. You mentioned Dara O'Shea.
I'm amazed I've even said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got all the highs and the lows of this season to come. Being confirmed that our season tickets are sorted. They keep extending and extending and extending the deadline for season ticket sales. So yeah,
I'll tell you what could happen. I'll tell you what could happen this year, Jonathan. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries.
With the likes of Leeds and Leicester coming down, and Ipswich coming up, and Sheffield Wednesday coming up, some big clubs. This might sound insulting, and I don't mean it to. Sky might lose some interest in West Bromwich Albion. So for me, something that's sacred of following a football team, and it's going to affect my team, but it's the cost of the success that they've had. To me, 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon is sacred. Right, I think that's when all football should be played. Quite frankly, even in a digital age, you can still show games on TV and still play at 3:00. I don't see what the problem is as far as that's concerned. But if Sky lose their interest in showing West Brom, then it's going to be less Friday nights. It's going to be less Monday nights. It's going to be less sort of noon kickoffs and stuff like that. If you can get into, and that's what a lot of the Championship is. Because it's relentless, but if you can get into a rhythm of playing, okay, we're only playing at 3:00 on a Saturday, or we might play on a Tuesday night at 7:45, and you can get into that rhythm and you can get into that routine. Look what happened with Luton; they were hardly on TV, right?
Yeah.
So if you can get it to a point where you're almost forgotten about, and you can go under the radar, and you think they're surprising a few here and having a good season, that's Wizard of Oz best case scenario that I can think of in terms of if they were to have a good season, and I hope they do. Can't see it happening myself unless they get a lot of these long-term players off the wage bill, who are, like I said at the top, depreciating in value the longer they're at the club. Then nobody's going to want them. So it's catch-22. It's catch-22. You can play more at 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon and get into a good rhythm, or you can tread water because you can't get these high wage earners off the wage bill. We don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the wage bill, onto transfers for the Albion. We have nothing literally to report in terms of incoming. I mean, it might change between the time of this recording and the time this episode goes out. So if it does, just leave in the comments below if we missed anything since the recording of this episode. But as of the recording of this episode, we have not, literally had any incomings. We've had quite a few outgoings. We've had a lot of players released from the club. Jake Livermore's contract ended last season, obviously. Gave him a good send-off on the final home game of the season against Norwich. But yeah, he's gone to Watford now, which could potentially be a promotion rival in the Championship. We've also, the big one is Darren O'Shea, who for a time last season was our captain. He's gone to the Premier League with Burnley. And, we all know how successful players from West Brom are when they go to Burnley. Just look at Joe Rodriguez. And also, Carlan Grant on loan to Cardiff. Now, where Carlan Grant plays, striker, winger, we haven't got much depth at the moment. The only recognised strikers I know about is Daryl DK, who's coming back from injury, and Brandon Thomas-Asante. So it is a little bit worrying, even if it is Carlan Grant, and I know he's not the most popular player at the Hawthorns in terms of, like, from the fans' point of view. But even losing Carlan Grant on loan to Cardiff, where they already had, who was it, Darren? It was, who was it? It was Robinson that went to Cardiff last season, and there was someone else, I can't quite remember his name. But they all went to Cardiff, and it is a little bit worrying that the depth is dwindling somewhat in the areas where we need them the most. So, Darren, how do you feel? Are they good deals for the Albion to get them off the wage bill, or have we left ourselves vulnerable in those kind of positions for the new season?
I think we left ourselves vulnerable.
Yeah.
In my
I mean,
eyes.
like I said, as far as I'm aware, we've only got 2 recognised strikers, and one of them seems to get injured. The majority of the time, Daryl DK. No disrespect to him, when he's good, he's good. The 2 goals he scored against who was it? Who's it that he scored the 2 goals against? Can't remember. But he scored those 2 quick fire goals. We were 2-0 up and cruising. But then very next game, he gets injured and he's out for a number of weeks. And I'm not saying that, the lack of strikers is the sole reason why we didn't get into the playoff race at the end of the season, but it couldn't have helped. Ben, what do you see with the fact that it's this close to the season and there's still no transfers coming into the Albion? If anything, we've lost key players in Dara O'Shea and even Carlin Grant, which we could have done with, given that he's basically another striker.
Yeah, I mean, what you can do to kind of redress the balances is that look at the areas where you are reasonably strong. And from the times that I saw West Brom, and I saw plenty of them, that there were plenty in there that I liked. That particularly in the midfield, I like John Swift, and I like I like Jason Malumbi as well, who popped up with some good moments. Arriving sort of late in the box and getting efforts in on goal. Jed Wallace, of course. The likes. I'd like to know where Grady Diangana's head's going to be going into the new season as well. So as long as they contribute, then you'll get your 10, 15 goals out of Thomas Asante, DK, providing, as you say, that he stays fit. They're going to have to, if they're going to bring some kind of forward in, though, they're going to have to unearth some kind of hidden gem from somewhere, because nothing immediately springs to mind of a player, even in the Championship, that they could be linked with. And I think it's also very telling. You mentioned before, if you're losing out on players at the club to go to Cardiff, who until the very sort of final few weeks of the season were looking decidedly dodgy in terms of staying in the Championship, you're losing players to Cardiff. I don't think that looks particularly good. So focus on the strengths. Like I mentioned, Eric Peters signing a new contract. He's going to be important for them at the back. Try and get your goals from Swift and Wallace and Malumbi. Try and reinvigorate Diangana if you can, and see what you can get out of the front two. I can't see any new players, that we know of anyway, coming in that would radically change the squad.
Yeah, I mean, like you said earlier, with all the loans that we've got at the club, finance-wise, we've probably only got about 7 million to play around with. So it might be yet another season where we're dependent on loan signings. Now, obviously, we've had previous loan signings like Conor Gallagher, and he went back to Chelsea. And I wouldn't say he's done wonders at Chelsea, but he's been one of the better players for Chelsea, in my opinion, last season. Saying that, Chelsea's season themselves was pretty poor by their standards, and we've also had a few other loan signings. I mean, there's too many loans to keep up with at the club at the moment. I've always said, even like the last time we were in the Premier League, that we were basically a Championship club with a few loans. And I still stand by that even 3 years later, that we were a Championship club and we had no chance of staying in the Premier League that season, because the other clubs had just, improved. And, each year, all the other teams seem to improve on what they've got. And, we are in danger as a club of being left behind. If not, we've already been left behind because, a team of Albion's caliber should be, punching well above what we are right now. There's going to come a time where we can only take, as fans, so many ninth place finishes in the championship, because that equates to like being the 29th best team in the country, out of 92. And, with our expectations and, with our history, we really should be punching a little bit more. I wouldn't say that we'd be like mid-table Premier League, but, we should be doing better than what we are now. And, we just keep having to do loan signings because, quite simply, the finances just aren't there. And we'll get onto that next because, I'm going to talk a little bit about Action for Albion. And they've had a meeting on the 21st of June with the new CEO, Mark Miles. And basically, it was a clear the air meeting. They wanted Action for Albion wanted answers on like the ownership structure, and obviously prospective investors for a possible takeover, the club's involvement in any takeover bids, and also probably the most important one, Gauchen Loy's role as chairman. And because ever since he brought the club, I think he's only ever been to one West Bromwich Albion game, and he brought the club in like 2016. So you're talking like 6 years, possibly 7, where we've had an owner that just hasn't bothered showing up, taking money out of the club, treating the club like it's his own personal bank, so to speak. He still hasn't paid back the money that he's owed. And it was really annoying. And that's the whole reason why Action for Albion was created, because Ali Jones, who I've spoken to personally, he's a great guy, and the other, creators of Action for Albion, they're fans who have basically said enough is enough, we want answers. And also shareholders for Albion as well, S for A, they're disappointed that they haven't got any answers. And, they're like the minority shareholders of the club. So they're investing money in the club themselves and getting nothing back from it. And they want to know why as well.
But the pattern is there. The pattern is there in terms of football club ownership from the Far East. Look down the road. Birmingham City have just been taken over. The Blues fans have wanted that for the best part of a decade. And they've finally got their way. Wolves look like they were doing all right in the Premier League, but they don't spend anywhere near the kind of money that they used to when they first got into the Premier League, and many are tipping Wolves to struggle in the Premier League, which will be music to the ears of a lot of people on this channel. Before the owners, Aston Villa, the current owners, Suarez and Edens came in, we had the previous guy from China, Tony Jia, who gambled everything on getting up in the playoffs, and we lost the playoff final to Fulham, and we were days away from administration. There are serious problems with football, and Leicester City now. Look at Leicester City, right now in the Championship, having gone to the highest of highs with Far East ownership. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable, and I think both the Premier League and the EFL, we often hear about the fit and proper test with the EFL. It needs to be looked at in terms of the Far East. What are ownership models from the Far East like? What are their intentions when it comes to owning a football club? I've no doubt in terms of Leicester City that the intentions there were good and pure. I mean, the chairman who lost his life tragically in the helicopter crash, I'm sure he was Leicester City through and through while he was the owner. I've no doubt about that. But there's enough. I don't want to say evidence, but I can't think of a better word. Of like we said, Tony Jaa when he was at Aston Villa, and what's happening now at West Bromwich Albion, and what certainly happened at Birmingham City, until their takeover went through. Until this guy is gone, then I think the club will slowly but surely die. as you know it as a club.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
Now, I think you would take at this point him clearing off and taking the money because you just want him gone.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, Darren, we've been there for the process. We had the march before the Huddersfield game. You know, I've spoken to Ali and the rest of the members of Action for Albion. You know, other West Bromwich Albion vloggers like Connor and Paul. They've spoken to Action for Albion as well for their content. So, I mean, Action for Albion at the moment is a really popular group amongst the fans because they're the ones that are saying, right, we want answers and this is what we're doing. You know, there's no violence or anything like that. You know, they've all been peaceful protests, and I commend Ali and Action for Albion for that. You know, and I also commend, you know, those involved in the protests as well. You know, because at the end of the day, you know, it's our club, it's our livelihood that we're you know, spending to go to games. You know, and we don't want to spend. I mean, you know, our season tickets have cost us a tidy little three-figure sum, hasn't it, Darren? And we, you know, we don't want to be spending that kind of money for no disrespect to get a 2-2 draw from QPR. You know, it's we don't want that, and you know, it all comes from the board, from the chairman. Couple of weeks ago, we had that YouTube video from Hit Sevens that basically laid out everything to do with the West Bromwich Albion ownership. And if you haven't seen that already, guys, then it's half an hour, 40 minutes. You know, it's half an hour, 40 minutes long, but it really gives you an in-depth analysis from an outsider's point of view, no less, as to what West Bromwich Albion's ownership has, you know, how that's happened. So yeah, Hit C7s, I think his name is, who did that video, and you know, full credit to him. This is a guy who's not even, you know, West Bromwich Albion. He's not even a West Bromwich Albion fan, and he's done this kind of video. And yeah, I mean, what do you think the way forward is, Darren, for Action for Albion now? Do we do more protests? Do we do more marches? Or, you know, do you think that, you know, the board will take note?
Yeah, Action for Albion is doing a very good job, I must admit. And I hope in the future, I really doubt it, but I hope the board will take on.
Yeah, absolutely. See,
just
it's
look
like
down the road.
Yeah, look at Birmingham now. You know, they were protesting for so long, and now they've had
a long time.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that's the worry. The miracle, as far as Birmingham City are concerned, is that through all that time they stayed in the Championship, which is absolutely incredible. And a few final day scrapes, which they didn't have to concern themselves with. My daughter's storming through, but there we go. They didn't have to go through the pain of that this past season, and I think John Eustace has done a more than commendable job at Birmingham City. But now they've got that sort of that new ownership and just a ray of hope, and sometimes that's all you need is that little spark to kind of go forward. What I would say, just for a bit of balance here, is that somebody who is I wouldn't say a customer because it doesn't cost me anything, but somebody who experiences West Bromwich Albion Football Club on a match day with how they conduct themselves when I go to do cover matches and commentate for BHBN and press assignments, it is absolutely first class. The staff are really warm and friendly. The hospitality, the leg room in the press box, it's amazing. You get to Villa Park, for instance, you're like eating sardines, right? You can't move. And yeah, I'm on the larger side. I won't deny that. But you got a whole gantry at West Brom at the top there. I could walk from one end of the pitch to the other if my microphone wire was long enough. It'd be absolutely wonderful. And I always enjoy going there. I always enjoy going there to commentate. So so to say that the club itself, you're talking about one person and how you feel about him.
Yeah,
and that's fine. That's understandable. There's a lot of very good people who work very hard to deliver what I think is a first-class service on a match day at West Bromwich Albion Football Club, and I don't think those people should be forgotten in these kind of conversations.
No, absolutely. I mean, all credit to the stewards. You know, we know a particular steward who works for the Albion. We know him on a personal level, me and Darren, and yeah, he's been, you know, really great. He's one of the heads of the stewarding team as well, so he makes sure that all the stewards are where they're supposed to be. And you know, I cannot fault West Bromwich Albion stewards. Can't fault, you know, even like the food vendors, the staff at the Stadium Megastore as well. You know, they've been really, really great in what they do. And it would be sad to see, you know, if, you know, the financial situation gets worse at West Bromwich Albion and redundancies happen, you know, it'll be really sad to see people like that lose their jobs, you know, over, you know, the financial stability of the club. And yeah, I mean, so a lot of respect from this channel goes to all the match day staff and even the non-match day staff, like the guys and girls at the Stadium Megastore, because they do a tremendous job. You know, they might not directly be involved in results or anything like that, but you know, they still do a bang up job, and you know, all credit to them. Right now, guys, we are going to go on a special little segment at the end of this episode that I like to call Team Focus. And this time, instead of just focusing on one team, I'm actually going to focus on two, because obviously, as I said, the new season starts at the time of this episode goes out. It will start on Saturday, the 5th of August. Our first opponents are Blackburn Rovers. Now, they have lost quite a few good people themselves. They've lost Ben Berreton Diaz. He's gone to Villarreal now in Spain. They've also said goodbye to Dan Butterworth and Bradley Dack. Now, I know Berreton Diaz and Bradley Dack, they were key players at Blackburn. They was unlucky to not make it into the playoffs, even though they beat Millwall on the last day of the season 4-3. That was an amazing game. I was watching that alongside our game with Swansea. And, you know, it was like, why can't we get all those goals? Because we ended up losing to Swansea on the last day of the season. But, yeah, I mean, they single-handedly, you know, ruined Millwall's hopes. They narrowly finished 7th, with Sunderland getting into the playoffs, albeit losing to Luton. But, yeah, I mean, you know, with losing key players, I mean, we've talked about this for the Albion, but how do you think losing players like Berreton Diaz and Bradley Dack at Ewood Park will affect them? How much of a threat do you think they're going to be come the promotion race in the Championship? Yeah, that's Ben, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm surprised a lower reaches of the Premier League club didn't take a gamble on Berreton Diaz. Quite honestly, I thought he would have been worth 15 to 20 million in the Premier League's not a lot of money. You know, you could get 10 to 15 goals out of him, and that probably keep you in the Premier League. So I am surprised that one. He practically got all their goals, and he was injured for a good couple of months, and then came back towards the end of the season, didn't he? And you know, the couple of months that he was out injured, I think were key. Really, they probably would have got in the playoffs. So to let him go, it's like with West Brom, you've got to see who comes in. But John Dahl Tomlinson didn't have a stellar career as a player. Had a couple of very sort of rubbish seasons as a striker at Newcastle United, trying to play alongside Alan Shearer, but it didn't work out for him. He's gone away. He's reinvented himself. He's become a coach. They had a decent season in the Championship, but they were certainly last season one of those teams that you didn't expect to be a serious contender in a push for the playoffs. But it can work out like that. You know, you get on a roll, you become consistent. I mean, who'd have thought the playoff final would be contested between Coventry and Luton?
Yeah,
you know, I mean, that just shows why the championship is fantastic. So they've got to replace the goals of Brereton Diaz, and they've got to replace the quality of Bradley Dack. Whether they do it, we'll have to wait and see. But I wouldn't be so sure at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And Darren, if I could ask you for a little bit of a match preview going into Saturday's game, how do you think? Because the fixture last season, this fixture ended in a 2-1 win to Blackburn at Ewood Park. So how do you think this one will pan out for us, first game of the season?
Well, Ewood Park is a bit of a tricky stadium to go to. And honestly, I think it's going to be a draw.
Yeah. What? Okay, I'll get your prediction now. Yeah. But what do you think the score will be? See, because I would say it'd be a very tight 1-1. You know, and it will basically be. Yeah, it will basically be. You know, first game of the season, you know, in the context of the entire season, may not mean much, but you do want to get off to a really good start at the start of the season. We haven't got a home game until the 12th, which is against Swansea. But yeah, I mean, Blackburn Rovers, it was one of those ones to watch last season, especially in the early stages of last season, where, as you said, Ben, you know, Brereton Diaz was getting goals, and they were at one point top of the league in the early stages of the season. So I'm really looking forward to the new season. Regardless, you know, it's that new hope thing that usually goes around this time of year. Brand new season, clean slate. Everyone starts from zero, and it's one of those. We'll probably see where we are, like 10, maybe 15 games in, you know, come like October, October, November time of year. But yeah, our second team on the team focus. Oh, yes, Ben.
I was going to say one thing that we should all embrace this season, that this is the first time since COVID that we're going into what we would call a normal football season in terms of its scheduling. So we're starting as normal in August. We're ending as normal in May. There isn't a pandemic, thankfully. There isn't a World Cup in Qatar. You know, we're actually returning to sort of football that, as it should be scheduled, as far as we're concerned, for the season. Yeah. So that's definitely something I'm excited about. Yeah, not since the 18-19 season, I believe, that, you know, we've actually had a normal season, shall we say. So now, Ben, I'm going to open up the floor to you, because our second team for the team focus is, of course, your team, Aston Villa. We all know that they've now got Europe to focus on as well, the Europa Conference League, which West Ham obviously won last season. Do you take inspiration from what West Ham did in that tournament, or have you got, as your guys at Villa Park, got their own agenda for the season, Europe and the Premier League for that matter? I want to be so careful not to jinx anything here, quite honestly. With all due respect to West Ham United, and I said this publicly at the time, brilliant moment when they won the Europa Conference League. I enjoyed it as much as any football fan would. There's always a debate about, do you want British teams to win in Europe or not? I think it's down to whether you like the individual club or not, quite frankly. And in West Ham's case, I've always had time for the fans down there, and, you know, claret and blue solidarity and all that. But I said, with all due respect to West Ham, if they can win that Europa Conference League with Unai Emery's pedigree of the Europa League. That's one up from the Conference League. The Europa League, he's won it 4 times. He knows how to handle Thursday night, Sunday. He knows what he's doing. So if you looked at it, and I don't know how much you guys like a bet on the horses or you follow that, if you were looking at the form and if it was a horse race, Villa would be odds on. You know, that's all in the kind of class that you're looking at. The signings have been exciting, but again, you're trying desperately to keep your feet on the ground. What they have got is 4 top quality centre backs now that Pau Torres is in, and Diego Carlos is now injury free, who was missing for most of last season. That's where it went wrong for Steven Gerrard. Really, it was his big signing. He got injured at the start of the season. You've still got Tyrone Mings, and you've still got Esri Konsa. This guy Diaby that's come in, this winger. I've watched some YouTube footage, and I'm trying not to be seduced by it, but it is very exciting. And the key thing, like I said, the key thing is Unai Emery. That's the key to this whole thing. He knows how to build a squad. He knows, like I said, about Thursday night and Sunday afternoon. I'm not going to make any predictions as to positions, league places, but what I will say is that I watched a 15-minute press conference that he did in America on YouTube with John McGinn prior to the this. I hate these tours that they do in America, and while you're playing, I'm sorry to come off track, while you are playing in a friendly, the team you are going to open the season against 3 weeks further down the line is ridiculous. It's why they're playing Newcastle United. I just don't. 3-3 draw. I don't read anything into pre-season friendlies. But the press conference that Unai Emery did, he kept saying the word trophy. Kept saying the word. I counted at least 5 or 6 times where he said the word trophy. That's what he's looking at. Now, you could say that's the Conference League. There's the FA Cup. There's the League Cup. You know, you can get on a roll. Unai Emery produces cup teams. I think his track record says that. So if they can finish in a similar position in the Premier League of between 6th and 10th, shall we say, and have a real good go at trying to pick up some silverware, I don't think you'll find any Villa fan who will argue with that as a season. I think we'll lap that up.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of like any transfer rumours or anyone you would like to add to the Villa squad before the start of the season or maybe before the window closes, is there anyone that as Villa fans you've got your eyes on? You're always
looking for a new striker. So I think there was a bit of lag there. You're always looking for a new striker. If you could be offered a new striker, that's fine. The ace in the pack could be Cameron Archer after his season on loan at Middlesbrough. So, he could be ready for a start in the Premier League as well to go forward. I think I've identified that Ollie Watkins is going to be the main man again, which is one of the masterstrokes of Unai Emery. When he came in, January came around, he said, Danny Ings, off you pop. Ollie Watkins is my main man. And I thought, why are we letting a 20-goal a season striker go out to a rival? And we were thinking we were still in the relegation battle at that point. And we were thinking, hang on, this is a bit dodgy. Not a bit of it. Unai Emery knew exactly what he was doing. He says, I don't need to. Gerrard's problem was he didn't know which one to play. Unai Emery's gone in there and he's gone, no, Ollie Watkins, you're my man. And that made the role Ollie Watkins got on in the, final third of the season was incredible. So all eyes will be on Ollie Watkins again. The midfield looks exciting. Bit disappointed that Jacob Ramsey got his injury on the under-21 duty. We don't yet know how serious that is. But there's Boubacar Kamara, there's John McGinn, there's Emi Buendia, who is improving all the time. And as I say, I don't like to read too much into pre-season, but apparently he was outstanding against Newcastle the other night. Yeah, we're going to rock up. We've got, like I said, Newcastle opening day of the season, and then first home game the following Sunday against Everton. And if we can get Villa Park rocking for that and get off to a good start, it's a tough run of fixtures early on, but if you can get off to a good start, I think there's a few teams in the league that won't fancy playing Villa this coming season, which is also quite exciting. But I'm not. I swear to you, I sound like I am, but I swear to you, I'm not getting carried away at all.
No, of course not. So yeah, guys, that's it for episode 1 of the Halfords Lane Chat. Thank you so much to our guest Ben Ellis. Where can we find you on social media and your radio stations, Ben?
Oh, okay. On social media, it's at Ben Ellis 1982. And before people start saying, "Oh, Villa fan going about 1982," blah 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 blah, it's the year I was born. So people start saying, "Oh, good Villa fan hanging off the hats off 1982." No, that's not the case. So BHBN Radio on the sports team. So we're getting back into the swing of things, which is an amazing thing, BHBN, because it provides commentary to the wards of the hospitals of Birmingham and parts of the Black Country as well. To do that on a Saturday afternoon is what we love, and particularly at St Andrews, where we do the commentaries for visually impaired supporters in the grounds as well. So it's really important service, and a shameless plug for Monday to Friday on Switch Radio for the Breakfast Show. Which we've been doing for about 2 months now, and it's going very well. And we'd like to get as many listeners as we can. And Jonathan is going to make a regular appearance on a Friday morning, doing some predictions ahead of the
I'm going to be on your show as well. Yeah, so
you are indeed. So it's why I'm here now, because you agreed to do mine, I've agreed to do yours. So it all goes sort of hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. I still haven't been able to get one of your daily twiddles right yet, though. So,
thank you for plugging that as well. Yeah, that's nice. You haven't got one.
I haven't got one right so far. I'm still trying.
Okay, sorry for those who don't know, we do a thing on the show in the morning called a twiddle, which is a riddle that we put on social media. The pun works best with Twitter. We might have to change that thanks to Mr. Musk now. So this is having a complete rebranding. That's only just occurred to me, but yeah, it's good, and a lot of people get involved, and we do one every single day, and we don't give the answer till the next morning as well, so people have got the whole kind of day to work on it, and it's going very well, and we're very pleased.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get better at those. So thank you very much to Ben Ellis there, and good luck for Villa for the season, unless you face us in a cup. You can catch me and Darren when we start up our match vlogs and match previews as well, and also the match reviews for the away games, because, financial situations, just like the Albion, we can't afford to go to every away game. So in place of that, we do match reviews. Also follow me and Darren on our F1 League on Thursdays over on my Twitch channel, which is now rebranded to CrazyShadow Gameplays. So we're going to be over there on Twitch most Thursday nights, racing a couple of our mates, and some of them American as well. So you'll see all the UK versus USA banter there as we're trying to fight for pole. And also Twitter at CrazyShadow303. But for now, guys, thank you so much, Ben. Thank you, Darren. And we'll see you next week for episode 2. Thanks, guys.